Hello and welcome to the new section on arguments and return types. In this section, we will explore how Java handles arguments to the methods and how the return types are managed. In this chapter, we will just have an introduction to passing arguments to a Java program or in general a Java method within a class. So we will discuss about the types that can be passed like primitives, reference types, and how Java handles them. So what are the strategies? So that's just an introduction about argument handling in Java. Passing arguments as parameters to functions or methods is a very important aspect of programming. In Java, when we have a class where we have a method defined which accepts certain parameters, so these parameters or arguments can be bifurcated into two types. One is primitive type and the second one is reference type. So primitive type. So what is a primitive type of argument that we typically pass? So they are nothing but pointing to variables of primitive types. For instance, you define a variable like integer, character, boolean, short, long, etc. So the basic primitive types are known as a primitive type argument. And then what does these do? They directly store the actual values, which means if I define an integer, int I is equal to 20, 20 is the actual value which is stored in that particular variable. So that is known as a primitive type. The second type is reference type. So reference types are used to access all objects in Java. So whenever you create an object in Java, which is of course done by a new keyword, so the new object gets created and you reference that particular object using a reference type or a reference variable. So the variables could be of class type, interface type, so it can be an array type or a reference to any other custom types that you would have defined in your class. Then it actually points to the memory location where the actual object is created. So it is not directly a copy of that particular object, it just holds the reference. For example, if you have an object, something like an employee, so you say employee E is equal to new employee, then what happens? The reference variable E actually points to a particular employee object which is created in the heap memory. So the reference type do not hold the object's data directly, rather it holds a reference to that particular object. So this is a very important concept we need to understand. And we know the new keyword which is responsible for allocating the memory required for a particular object based on the amount of data that is basically present in the object or in that particular class definition. So let us take an example here. Book is equal to new book. So when we say a book which is like a small book is equal to new book, it is nothing but a variable where book is known as a reference variable here, and it is pointing to a new book object which is created in the heap memory. It is also possible that the variable book can be referencing to a null object, which means it is not pointing to any object. So if you execute this particular program, initially the variable book is pointing to a new object which is there in the heap memory, and the moment it encounters the second statement book is equal to null, the first object which got created is dereferenced. When an object is dereferenced, it will be eligible for garbage collection. This is very much important concept as well. So we don't have to release that memory. So developer is not responsible for releasing the memory. It is automatically taken care by the JVM for us. And the moment an object is dereferenced, it will be garbage collected. And then in the third statement, we say book is equal to new book object. So in this case, the variable book is now pointing to a new book object which got created in the heap memory. So this is a very important concept that we need to understand about reference types. So the reference type that we basically saw here, like book is equal to null, so it is just referenced or known as a null reference. So it is also possible that we can initialize an object with some specific or a variable with an object, or we can say a particular reference variable is equal to null to start with. So this is a special value of null which is called as a null reference, and if you try to access some methods on this particular null reference, you will get an exception or an error. So this is the concept of the second references type that we can basically pass on to a method in Java. So with that, there are two options available. One is known as pass by value, where you are passing the value of the variable, and the second is pass by reference, where you are passing the reference of a particular object. So this is the concept, and we will discuss the concept of pass by value and pass by reference in detail in the coming chapters.